Just one. On it. Go top. Over top.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 5 of our Major League Rugby Draft previews. We're going to be talking about two positions where I don't think we have a lot of depth in the forwards, and that will be hooker and lock. We're going to mush them into the same show because I don't think we have as much to talk about here. But let's just sort of get into it. Let's talk about number 2, hooker, first. I think topping the list at hooker, the player that impressed most at MLR Rising, and not just sort of really as a player, but also as a teammate, his work rate, all of those things, was Neil Traynor. Plays for Queen's University in Ontario, the Canadian Queen's, not the one in Charlotte. His workout stats, well, they were all pretty much the same. There were 4 hookers who took part in those workouts at MLR Rising. He was right there with all of them, perhaps a little bit fitter than most, but born in the United States, qualifies for the United States, and we may well see him leverage that into a spot, and I think he might actually go pretty high in the draft. Now, Jordan Auger was also in there, and another one from Canada. Good carrier of the ball, a little bit faster, perhaps, than some of the other hookers, and they used him as sort of a battering ram, usually taking the ball, and he had like one step and somebody was hitting him. He handled that pretty well. I also have him rated as being really active in the rucks, getting involved. I mean, like, when I say getting involved in the ruck, I don't mean like the third guy who comes in and just leans up against someone. When I listed a ruck, it was like, whether defensively or offensively, you were hitting someone, you were moving someone away, making sure that. So usually 2 people in a ruck would get credit for a ruck, even if there were 3 or 4 that in there. And if on defense, if you didn't really, you were there and you're pushing people, but you weren't doing anything, you didn't really get credit for it. But if you came and you counter-rucked well, even if you didn't actually win the ball back, but you caused problems, you get a sort of a note for that. Auger got involved in 9 rucks. It was a pretty good number for him in that game, and his groundwork was also good. Line-out scores nicely as well. Nick Sidorowicz from Mary Washington, I think qualifies for Brazil, USA, and England, something like that. As I'm pretty sure he was born in the United States. That helps him a lot when it comes to being drafted and being signed. His scores on workout day were really good in the MLR Rising game. Got his work done. Good player, good prospect. I don't know. 3rd round, maybe. Max Clark was also MLR Rising. Didn't see as much of him, and his workout score is a little bit lower, especially on the Bronco, and I think that may be one of the reasons we didn't see as much of him. And I think that's a guy. He's a little bit smaller. So when you are a smaller hooker, when you get into the professional world, you have to be fitter than everybody, and you have to be more powerful. Kind of a wrestler, embrace the suck kind of guy, which he is. So I think maybe he gets a do-over, really, and that might be one of the things they talk about with players playing during the fall with club teams to move their way up the Atlantic Rugby Premiership, especially. Matt Conroy from St. Bonaventure unfortunately got injured, and what I can say about him, apart from the fact I've seen him and he's played well, he's not, I don't believe USA eligible, but the character thing came through. He participated in the entire MLR Rising week as much as he could, really just helping players, getting them water, getting them pennies to stuff, and acting as sort of a coach's assistant, and he was fantastic in that. And, people noticed that. One more player I'll of note that I'll mention, Queen's Charlotte hooker Josh Schwartz, didn't go to MLR Rising. I think he might have been a good addition there if they had space for him. Good line-out thrower, powerful, good in contact, good scrummager as well. So definitely another guy to keep an eye out. It might be one of those things where, I think he's from Florida, so he might want to think about some options as to where he plays, things like that. But, you know, again, Charlotte Rugby Club would be perfect for him if he's in Charlotte anyway. So work his way up and knock on Anthem door every now and then and say, hey, do you need another number 2? That's kind of it for, I mean, we've got a couple of other guys. I'm not going to talk about everybody. I just can't do that. But what I think, we don't have a super deep list of hookers this year. And we did see one player who had declared, pulled himself out of the running because he's a junior anyway. He's going to be going back for his senior year. So I'm not quite sure why people do that unless, and I suppose I can talk about that. Why do you declare for the draft if you're a junior? The only reason, I think, first of all, I never recommend for you to leave school early. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you are getting fulfilled and getting your degree and you think that's the path you want to go, then you should finish that up. Now, if you're a freshman and sophomore and you finally look around and say, college is not for me, who am I to tell you how to live your life? But if you're a junior, right, you're coming out of your junior year, you've got senior, you've got one more year to go to graduate. Now, there are some juniors who do declare that I'm talking about, and actually we'll talk about one of them today, because they know they're going to graduate early, or they're going to work their way. They have a plan. That's fine. Have a plan to graduate. But if you don't, if you're in a D1A team that is thinking about D1A championship, chances are you're playing college rugby in the spring. So why would you declare for the draft as a junior? You'd only do it just to see if anybody wants to draft you. That's pointless. It's a waste of time for everybody because they're not going to draft you because they know you're not going to be available to sign. So why would they bother doing that? So then you just go through the draft. But the thing is, you're a junior. So if you go back for a senior year, you have to do the whole draft thing again. So it's not like taking the SAT twice. It's just not like that. Before we get on to the second row, just want to thank our sponsors. US Rugby Foundation does so much great work in promoting our game, helping new teams, high school and youth teams, get started, helping burgeoning high school and youth teams get better, get a little bit more funding or get some equipment, Ball for All program, things like that. Please help them if you can. USRugbyFoundation.org. Irish Rugby Tours does an amazing job in planning out tours for rugby teams, and they find the right competition for you and the right location and the right other things to do. And they have tour operators, tour helpers, I guess, who go along with you to make sure that your experience is excellent, and they do a fantastic job. IrishRugbyTours.com. Next Phase Rugby is an app that connects high school rugby players to college rugby programs. Hundreds of college rugby programs are on the app, and thousands of high school rugby players are on there finding a chance to say, hey, this is a great school. I'm really excited about it. This is they provide what I want to study. And guess what? They also have a great rugby program, and I've connected with their coach, and I'm really excited to go there. What a great story. And we see those stories all the time. Panther Rugby Academy, which is a way for you to find elite playing opportunities as a young rugby player. They represent the United States in the RAN Under-19 championships. They also participate in elite level tournaments all over the country, giving chances for players to move their way up the ladder. PantherRugbyAcademy.com. All right, so let's go on to lock. Now, this is the thing about lock this year. Last couple of years, we've had a few second rows who are like, whoa, that's a professional player. Rick Rose went number 1 last year. The man's 6'8". Maybe even taller now. I don't know. He's a big man. We don't have anybody there that is pushing that side. I think Matt Lauding from Westchester may be the tallest. He may be the only one over 6'5". Everybody else maxes out at about 6'5". And these days, in professional international rugby, 6'5" is like the minimum at lock. Used to be you get away with 6'3.5", 6'4". It's really difficult to do that. So if you are that kind of player, yes, you can probably get in there, but you probably need to have other skills to be a little bit more flexible. We saw Sangala, who was a lock pretty much the whole time at Cal. get moved to number 6. Make the Eagles as number 6. Now, if they're running out of locks, do they put him in? Yes, they do. But height is a big part of it. Matthew and James Reed, they're twins from Life University. Terrific guys. Tweeners. Big-time tweeners. One of them played lock. One of them played 7 in the MLR Rising game. You could have pushed them out. And I felt, in a way, they were both a little bit out of sorts in the game. It's not that they played poorly, I think, and the issue was, what position are you playing? They didn't strike me as locks. But were they mobile and fast enough to be number 7? That was tough to gauge as well. Would they be a 6? And this was a problem for the selectors for those games, trying to figure out where these guys fit. I feel like we'll probably see them again. I think we're going to see them perform really, really well at some point. But I think they need to find their spot, and I don't know if second row is it. LaDon Mathis is close to 6'5". He piles his hair on top of his head, so that's kind of like cheating, I think. He had an issue with the heat, unfortunately, and he ended up having to go to the hospital. He was back to watch the game, MLR Rising, but he really didn't participate in anything after the first day because of heat-related issues. Really tough on him. I think he's a really fun, exciting, powerful player, and I really think eventually we'll see him as a professional simply because he's so physical and imposing. Just really fun to have him on a team. Chris Jensfold is probably like the quintessential second row kind of guy we could have, and I really have enjoyed watching him play in college at Louisville. In ML Rising, I wanted him to destroy people. I'm not sure I saw him destroy people, and I'm not sure if we saw everything that he can possibly do. Again, it's a project. He was good in the lineup. He made his tackles. He didn't flinch from everything, but I don't know if we saw everything that he can do. So the final guy actually didn't play lock in the MLR Rising game. He's listed as a lock. Played number 8 and lock in college. That's Ray Santiago. Now, a couple of things about him. Plays for Division II RPI. Can he handle that competition? Number 2, not quite tall enough to be a lock. So can you move him to another position? Number 3, he's a junior. So you're saying, what is he doing? All of these things don't apply to Santiago. Because number 1, he's worked very hard to find other competition options, such as he toured with the NCR All-Star team last year to France. He has played in the All-Star competitions, so he's always looking for tougher competition. Second, in the MLR Rising game, he did not look out of place at all. He was one of their main carriers. I gave him a 4.3 average on his carries, which is a 4.3 out of 5. That's really good. And he co-led the team in tackles. In terms of him being a junior, talk to him about it. He's a very smart guy. RPI is a tough school to go to. He says, I've got to play better rugby. I've got to play at a better level. So he's planning. He wants to be drafted. He wants to sign with a pro team or get into an academy situation, whatever it is, to build himself. Meanwhile, he'll finish, and he's smart enough to finish remotely. He doesn't have a problem that academically. So that's kind of an interesting thing. We talked about that with Danny Bray, same deal. And then finally, talking about what position he plays, I think he can slide in at lock, even though he's a little bit shorter. He played 6 for the Red in the MLR Rising in a losing effort, was one of their better players. I'd say send him to New England, put him through their academy system, build him up. And in terms of my interactions with him, he's a leader and just somebody people gravitate toward. And he managed to do that despite not coming from a D1A program. So that's it. Big question marks at hooker. Big question marks, bigger question marks perhaps at lock. We will see people we will see players who will look at all those preconceived notions that I've trotted out there and throw them out the window. And those are the guys you want.